Welcome back to another episode of the BYU Tech Transfer Podcast. Today we have Cliff Michaels here with me. He is the Executive Director of the University of Kansas Tech Transfer Team. Thank you so much for being here with us, Cliff. Do you mind maybe introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about how you got here?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to do this. Thrilled to get the invite and thrilled to share a little bit about what we have going on at KU at the moment in tech transfer. So, as you said, right, I'm Cliff Michaels. I'm the executive director of the KU Center for Technology Commercialization. That's our official name. And we are a one university office, meaning that we serve both our Lawrence campus, which is the primary university campus, where we have engineering and pharmacy and our humanities and social sciences and all of our undergraduates and all that stuff, as well as our medical center, which is obviously where the med school, the nursing school, and the allied health professions are, and that's in Kansas City, Kansas. And so we sort of span this, hour gap on I-70 basically, and we have a team in both spots. Myself, I am a scientist by training, neuroscience. Did my graduate degree at Emory University in Atlanta. Emory's, pretty well known in our space. Had the privilege of really growing up in that tech transfer office, being mentored by a number of wonderful people across my career. And in 2019, left Emory to take up the helm at Georgia State University, which is in downtown Atlanta. Spent the pandemic years there. And then in 2023, took the opportunity to come to KU and work on what is really a rebuilding and revitalization effort for the tech transfer office after a few relatively, sort of stagnant, stale years. So we've got a lot of good things going on, and I'm happy to tell you about them.
Yeah, no, that's great. And tell us a little bit more maybe about the mission at KU. Like you said, you're in maybe a little bit of a rebuilding phase, so maybe you have a chance to kind of set that direction now. What do you see as your kind of vision moving forward?
Sure. So one of the things I think to understand about us at KU is that it really is an ecosystem model, right? It is not a central hub for all things innovation sitting in the TTO or in any other office. It really is a distributed network. And I think that really speaks to a little bit around having these sort of multiple campuses that we are serving with, different foci. And different types of innovators that we need to serve. So, in coming to KU, one of the things I think that we do and we offer to the ecosystem and our contribution really is to be the connective tissue between all of these different nodes. I think the tech transfer office or a tech transfer office really can lean into that mission, and we certainly are, because we are, aligned with our research community. We are, sort of in the trenches with our researchers, understanding what's going on, and we have that sort of connectivity. We protect the IP, we do the licenses. Okay, that's sort of a front end and sometimes a back end activity in terms of the pipeline, right? And so we're connected there. We also understand that many of our technologies are going to go out to startup companies, right? Well, we have an incubator, we have an innovation park, we have accelerators within our campuses. And so we, again, get to be this sort of connective piece between these things, tying all these together. And so as far as our mission goes, we're really, again, leaning into that mission to be the connective tissue between these different dots on KU's map.
Yeah.
As much as we can, right? And so again, I think, like every other TTO, our primary roles, we go out, we find good IP, we negotiate the licenses, and then we partner and collaborate with others, really, with the goal of driving impact. And we use the word impact intentionally because it's not revenue, it's not all startup companies, it's not all economic development, right? We want to be a home for all types of innovators, and we want to work with all types of innovators, which means we have lots of different ways of deriving impact from the cool things that they're creating in their labs or under their research or scholarly activities.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, that's a little bit about our mission and where we are, and what I like to think makes us, sort of different than some of the other innovation-focused units on our campuses.
Yeah, no, I love that. And the focus on being that connected tissue. A lot of these researchers, and especially having maybe like two distinct groups, you said an hour apart, being that connective tissue to make sure that people are having the right conversations, that they're aware of, things that are going on at these different campuses, I think is incredibly important.
Right. Right. Well, and I think one of the other opportunities that we have, and again, this is something that we share with our colleagues, for example, in industry engagement. We have an industry engagement office. And there's a lot of commonality there in our approach to engaging with our researchers, but is also this understanding that research science has developed in a very interdisciplinary manner, cross-disciplinary, whatever your current phrase of choice is. Right, and we know the research communities, right? And so one of the other pieces of that connectivity is to help combine and leverage sort of questions over here from one discipline with expertise in a different discipline and try to do more, right? And bring together in a very organic fashion collaborative effort amongst our faculty from different disciplines so that they can come up with, the great creative solution to whatever the problem is that we're facing.
Yes. No, I love that. And I love that you're using impact as a metric because in the tech transfer space, there's so many different ways that you can measure success, you know. And
Mhm.
so I like that you've gone broad enough that it can encompass a lot of those different kinds of success, right? It's maybe
Yeah.
some revenue, it's maybe some patenting, maybe it is some startups, right? But it really is more broadly the impact that this technology and the research is going to have on the world and making sure that you're a part of that.
Right, right, right. Well, and I think it also ties into, for us in particular at KU, ties into, I think, one of the great opportunities that we have at KU, but it's also a little bit of a challenge, which is we have this wide diversity of expertise in research, right? Again, I talked about it. We have tremendous expertise in engineering. We have tremendous expertise in pharmacy. We have tremendous expertise in other areas of life science and med tech, digital health, all of those sort of things. And then we have an incredible amount of expertise in education, right? Like that is a very big, prominent school within KU, right? All of that sort of lends itself to that broad definition of success because those different types of things, I don't know a better term, things that are being
No, no
developed,
worries.
discovered, created out of those activities and scholarly endeavors lend themselves to different ways of having impact. And we want to be a place where, there is, a home for every type of innovator. And we think we can really bring that to the table. And it's again, it's one of those things that makes us a little bit different than some of our sister units on campus because they are maybe more discipline specific or more focused in a particular area or a particular type of innovator. And well, we are sort of a step back. We're earlier in the pipeline and we speak to all innovators across all of our campuses.
Yeah, no, I love that. And with that being said, the broadness of, all the different researchers and innovators that you have, would you say there is any kind of technical area where you see maybe more innovations coming from than others, or would you say it's pretty evenly spread out across, the different disciplines?
Mhm. Sure. So two things there. One
Mhm.
is I think we do have a couple core focus areas, really, that are either have a history of success or that are primed for success as we go forward. But then part of it too, going back to my earlier comments about being rebuilding and revitalizing. Again, one of the core sort of pillars for our program is to be engaged with our research community in a way that we haven't in the past. So I think there's also baked into sort of our areas of expertise is a little bit of, well, have we really done a good job engaging with that particular community of innovators? Because maybe it's outside of, again, the traditional STEM disciplines. Doesn't mean that they're not creating great stuff that could really have an impact and may even have commercial opportunities around them, or we could build commercial opportunities around them. But we haven't done a good job engaging with them, and so we need to build that outreach. And so we're again sort of trying to broaden the scope of who we engage with. But back to your original question, which was sort of core areas of expertise, right? So we have been known and have had a very solid history around therapeutics and pharmaceuticals for many, many years, right? We've had a very strong school of pharmacy,
Mhm.
developed at least two different products that have made it, sort of to market, particularly in formulation and delivery. So
Yeah.
not maybe the original, molecule itself, but we figured out the way to get it where it needs to go and the dose it needs to go, and so it
Gotcha.
lasts for the right amount of time and all that sort of complexity that comes a little bit further down the line. Same thing within our medical center. We have a great cancer center, and within the cancer center, a terrific drug accelerator that is partnered with a venture firm and is sort of working to launch the next great drug discovery opportunity. So again, I think that's sort of a great area for us. Other areas of expertise, we've had a lot of innovation in aerospace, right? So I think if you look at across Kansas, and I'm still getting to know Kansas, I've only been here for 2 years, right? Kansas has as a state, has a good background and a good history in aerospace development, much of it out of Wichita, much of it aligned with Boeing and defense contracting and such. But our engineering school has many of those same partnerships and is developing very interesting aerospace innovations. Other areas, one that's sort of forward looking maybe is we're developing really an expertise in cybersecurity. Now, I think for our office, one of the fun things about that is those kind of innovations don't have a clear and the same pathway to market, maybe as some of the other things that we see that are a little more routine in some ways, where it's a device or a drug. So we're having to get a little bit creative and think about, well, how are we going to take something that is sort of a framework, a logic for cybersecurity and how to implement it, right, and
Yes.
and turn that into a sustainable opportunity. And luckily, we have good partners around that, either at our innovation park, and then of course the innovators themselves to help us sort through some of that. So other area, one last one, we sort of hit on all four then, and I feel like I've covered the base as well,
Yeah.
is EdTech, education technologies. And we have a lot of faculty, again, out of that real powerhouse school of education at KU that are developing implementations, interventions, tools, survey instruments, and some of which then can get built into or are being built into platforms that then allow for distribution wide, particularly for K through 12 students, right? And so things in the social and emotional learning spectrum, special education, we're sort of in that space, and we're looking at how to develop sort of software as a service models and companies then to spin out that are around these education technologies and platforms from the school bed.
Okay, great. So kind of those four main areas, and
Yeah,
obviously to your points previously, you're
yeah,
broadly looking for maybe other areas on and off campus that maybe you haven't been as, I don't know. I'm
connected.
thinking internally for us here at BYU, like we've been reaching out to like the College of Nursing, right? Places where we haven't really seen technologies coming from in the past, but that there's no reason that there shouldn't be. So just trying to
Right.
foster those relationships and make sure that they know who we are, know what resources we have available, know how to reach out to us and, ask the
Yep.
right questions, all those types of good things.
Yep. I am on a road show.
Yes.
Which is exactly what you're talking to, which is sort of plugging myself into lots of departmental meetings, other sort of group meetings on campus, on our campuses, just to give that 15 to 20-minute overview of this is who we are, this is why we exist, this is why you get in contact with us, this is what we will do,
Yes.
right, and trying to lower that threshold, the barriers to entry, and so that it's really a collaborative effort, right? We're not scary, we're not the IP police,
Right.
right? We're actually
Yes.
here and we want to talk about your work. We want to talk about the cool research you've got going on and the questions that you're answering, and just see if there's, maybe another path for them to have an impact aside of your, traditional academic outputs of publications and grants and presentations and all of that.
Yeah. And with that, what resources do you feel like KU has specifically for faculty that may be different or maybe they're the same, but that you feel like are good resources for the faculty to know about?
Sure. So we have an effort, as I said, we're sort of this distributed ecosystem model across our campuses. So we have this effort that has really come together as a task force to pull those, sort of core nodes again, like I was talking about, pull them together and connect them better amongst themselves, and start to chart out a little bit of what each one is good at, and sort of understand the map and the lay of the land, because that's one of the common questions we get from faculty who come to us with an idea or with a discovery, which is, well, I didn't know quite where to go first, because there's lots of people in the mix, right? And so
Yes.
we're trying to
Yes.
demystify that a little bit for them collectively. Again, it's not just a TTO effort, that's an effort across the entire ecosystem. So, but when you talk about the sort of special things, I mentioned one earlier, which is our drug accelerator out of the cancer
Mhm.
center and the medical center. I mean, just tremendous expertise, understanding, real, sort of technical understanding from a company perspective, pharma people embedded in there that really understand the kind of questions that they're going to look for. And then again, partnered with a local VC firm to help, sort of get some resources behind those early opportunities and help them grow and scale. So that's one. Another one that we have at the medical center in particular is what we call Digital Health CoLab. That is our digital health accelerator. It's still in its early days, but one of the main things and thrust that it has been doing, which has started to pay dividends, is bringing together a community around digital health at our medical center, right? And so it's bringing together sort of bench scientists. I don't know what
Mhm.
bench is for digital health, but bench scientists,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Or the research, based scientists and faculty, but then also bringing in a whole lot of the clinical faculty, right, who don't necessarily have research time or busy treating patients, but understand the problem in a way that lends itself to the development of a solution for that particular problem. And so they have done just a tremendous job bringing that community together. Very excited to see where that goes. That's sort of two of our main sort of partners in innovation. The other two are more university focused on the other side of our other campus.
Mhm.
And one is our innovation park. So we have a public-private partnership. The university is a member, the county is a member. I think the city of Lawrence is a member. But around an innovation park that is adjacent to our campus, right? And actually, we
Fantastic.
have
Yeah.
offices. We actually squat there. They're kind enough to give us some space, and we can hang out there with them. But that's your traditional wet lab, incubator space, and all those sort of
Right.
things, shared meeting space and the like. But it really is a home for innovators, right? And they offer services. What I sort of say is wraparound services for startups, which
Mhm.
are around, hey, you don't need a full-time HR person, but you need somebody who can speak HR language. You
Yes.
need some back-end finance help. You need some market support and research. You need some help prepping your SBIR, STTR. They offer
Yes.
those startup, sort of support services.
Right. All the
Um,
things that are very hard as a startup, and you don't need somebody full time working on any of it, but you do need kind of that support. Yes.
Right. And we are lucky to have them, right? Because those are areas that in a small office, and we are only a small office, we're 10 people total, right, serving and our research enterprise is about $460 million in expenditures. So we're sort of a mid-sized university in terms of research activity.
Mhm.
Um, I'm thankful for them and for what they contribute all the time because we would be trying to help with those kind of things where we can because that's sort of our nature. But it's nice to have sort of a dedicated team there at the innovation park that can step in and help. And we just need to
Yes.
sort of again guide the opportunity at the right time to the right people. Also over there in Lawrence, but really serving the university at large is our economic development unit, which is also where our industry engagement function lives. Again, great partners. And I think one of the things, we could talk about a little bit is sort of things that are changing or have changed in the last 15 years in tech transfer, right? And I think we've gone from this, patent license, collect royalties sort of, pathway to
Mhm.
one that is now sort of messy and gray, right? All over the
Yes.
place, right? It's
Yes.
fun, but it's also a challenge.
Yes.
So when we talk about our industry engagement colleagues and our economic development colleagues, right, we end up spending a lot of time with them because we know that they're bringing a company to campus, right, and that's an opportunity to build a relationship, and that relationship may start out as some sort of research activity, but certainly could grow into a license or grow into something else, right? Some other sort of partnership, and we've got to be okay, and we've got to be nimble and
Yes.
creative, and not say if it doesn't fit in this box, we're not going to do it because I think that's clearly changed in our world. I think there's lots of models and lots of different ways of doing business, and you've got to be agile. And
Yes.
so we find
Well,
ourselves with our again those colleagues doing that kind of work very often.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we've seen that historically tech transfer, is exactly what you pointed out, right? Where it was like, all right, we patent, then we license, then we collect royalties, and it's this very clean cut, everything fits into this box. And I think time has proven that that is not necessarily the best way to maximize the impact, right? That the technologies are going to have on society. And
Right.
so, I mean, are there any other particular challenges that see tech transfer having right now, either,
Yeah.
KU specifically or just generally that you see in tech transfer?
Sure, sure. I think, I talked about it as an opportunity earlier, but I think
Mhm.
for KU, and I think I would imagine this is ubiquitous to many other institutions, is the challenge of, well, great, we have this diverse pool of innovations to work on, but then how do we have expertise to really understand the path to market for each of those different types of innovations, right? And that is something that we have recognized and we've been addressing by trying to pull in some additional talent, right? For example, to help with software innovation, because I'm not a software guy, right? I need somebody who can speak that language, understand that language, and can work with those kind of innovators and understands, again, their path to market. So and how you might protect them because you're not always protecting them with patents, obviously.
Yes.
Right. So that's one of, I think, for us, the challenge is great. We have this wonderfully diverse pool of research and innovations coming out of it, but then how do we serve all of those communities equitably? And it is again sort of a challenge for us, but we're working to address it. I think, right, again, I think sort of from the KU experience, but maybe applicable elsewhere, is just sort of the growth in innovation. And I use the word innovation often in sort of as a big tent word of
Mhm.
capturing all kinds of different activities from industry engagement through new venture creation to out licensing and all of that, right? And so again, we have many colleagues and partners on our campuses doing work to help raise innovation around KU as a whole, but that is a challenge because it is managing multiple units across multiple domains with different stakeholders behind them. And
Yes.
again, I don't think that's unique to KU. I think that is just, again, a change in our business where it's not all centralized in the TTO. Now it's accelerators and incubators and other entrepreneurial training programs and ICOR and, all of those
Yes.
things. Right. And so, I like to say we just, have to work together. We have to work together. It's for the university and for innovators, not for you, me, or the individual, right? So let's work together and try to do something great. The other thing that I feel personally, has changed is a lot of the funding mechanisms that we're seeing now, from things like ARPA H through, through the CHIPS Act and,
Yes.
all of the new programming out of NSF, all of which, I shouldn't say all of which, but many of which have these core commercialization components
Mhm.
to them, right? And they take a lot of effort on our end to help raise them up, get them off the ground, put the applications in, and then manage them. If we get the award,
Mhm.
fantastic. But now we got to manage it, and oh my gosh, what
Yep.
does that look like?
Yes.
Right. And I think we're all, again, as a community, we're starting to feel some of that pressure. It's great to have these opportunities, but I think there's a little bit of a lack of clarity from the funding agencies on what the expectations are
Mhm.
for us. And then I think there is also a little bit of a wake up call on our end in terms of, once those awards come in, what is it going to take to actually implement them effectively? Again, it's a great opportunity for us. We could see tremendous impact from the things that are developed out of those awards, but it is new and different. And I think it requires additional bandwidth. And for offices that are, resource constrained,
Yes.
I think again, I think even in the best of cases, you talk to anybody at a TTO and they're not going to say, "Oh, I have more resources than I ever could need." Right? None of us are
Yes.
ever in it. Sure.
Yeah.
So,
So it's how do you
yeah,
manage this with our already, constrained resources that are, being
yeah,
pushed and but like you
yeah.
said, it is an opportunity, right? And if you
Right,
can navigate it and take advantage of it, I think it's something that you can capitalize on for sure.
right. And where can you find, again, sort of the partnerships within your own campus? Right. This is something we talk about quite frequently. Is where are there places where there is a clear alignment. And so it's less about, is it your person or my person, and more about just meeting the need. And that need sort of sits between two different units within the innovation ecosystem. And how can we, again, sort of bring maybe one new face into the game and have them serve multiple capacities across the innovation ecosystem. So yeah, I mean, like, again, lots of challenges, but I
Yeah.
like to think that we're creative people, and that's one of the reasons we like this field. And so those
Yes.
challenges are good because we'll figure out how to get at them.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of looking internally, one thing that we've seen here at BYU is leveraging, or including students, I should say, in kind of the TTO tech transfer process. We've
Sure.
seen, quite a bit of success with student startups as either technical or business founders or some combination of those. What opportunities are there at KU for students to get involved with tech transfer?
Sure, sure. So we are, sort of, I think on the spectrum, we're probably more in that traditional realm where the community that we serve clearly is the community of faculty, research, innovators, right? That is our primary calling. Now, that doesn't mean at all that we won't try to help students and student entrepreneurship when we can, right? And again, a lot of it is we have a network, we have connections. How do we navigate them to somebody who can really help them address their question? Because again, it's not our primary calling. Um, we also have a good relationship with our entrepreneurship and innovation center or group within the business school, and some of the programming that they're building. And they've got some really cool initiatives coming down. And I'm happy to, again, we're sort of working on, well, where do we fit in and how can we help with all of that? So on the other end, however, I will say our, again, innovation park engages particularly graduate students
Mhm.
as business analysts to help with some of the early stage, commercialization planning, business planning for new ventures. And those can be new ventures that are related to KU technology, or they can be from the community because the innovation park serves both the university as well as the community at large. So that's the core one.
Yeah.
Myself, right, I am the product of an internship. If I wouldn't be here, that was my, way and my foot in the door.
Yeah.
And I was, yeah, very lucky to have that. Um, we have not been sort of in our rebuilding over the last 2 years, been able really, I think, to give students a good opportunity,
Mm.
right, to join us. It is in our FY25 plan,
Yes.
but we're not quite there. Sorry, not FY25, calendar year 25 plan, not quite there yet. But certainly something we want to do. And what we've noticed across, again, the ecosystem as a whole is we talk a lot about undergraduate entrepreneurism and startup and ventures and those sort of things. We talk a lot about faculty. Where do the graduate students fit, right? And I think that is a place where the TTO really can serve a different community of students
Yeah.
that really do need opportunities to sort of spread their wings and learn about careers outside the lab and away from the bench, because we know that many of them will go into those kind of careers. And I think that one of the best things about our field is you get this sort of broad-based general knowledge of lots of different areas that you can apply in lots of places. Um,
Yeah. Well, and
that's
I think that
but
goes to kind of your comment earlier about being that connective tissue, right? Of
yeah,
connecting the right people across the ecosystem. So even if it's not, hey, there's an opportunity directly here for you at the tech transfer office, maybe it's connecting you with this student group or this incubator or whoever it might be to really maximize the impact that they can have. So,
right. Well, and it brings back sort of a word of wisdom from some of my mentors, or from a mentor in particular, which was that how relationships are so important in our business, right? And that it is that connectivity, right? You need those relationships to have those partnerships to get things going. You need that trust, and that they're sort of the keys to the kingdom. And I often express to my staff as we're sort of building and ramping up is I want you to build those strong bridges and relationships to our faculty, to our community, to our partners, each and every one of you, because I think that's something really that we can leverage to do more with, again, the resources we have to make more of what we got. Um, the other thing that we do for students, just to sort of come back to that real quick,
yeah.
is we do sort of play a role in helping educate our students. I like to think that particularly students from STEM disciplines, should have a general working knowledge of IP because it is important.
Yes.
Right. I fundamentally believe that intellectual property is important. It wouldn't be
Mhm.
in the Constitution if it was otherwise.
Yes. It
So,
was obviously
um,
on their minds when they were drafting that, right?
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Right. Well, and again, it's sort of like, educating the general populace about, and that's a way to get at sort of the general population, right? Is by educating students as they're going through about like, this is important stuff. And, it may not sound like the most exciting stuff, but in reality, it helps make the world go round. And so
Yes.
we need to protect it. We need to invest in it. So we've been trying to sort of plug in, particularly this year with some of our engineering students, to give them a little bit of a flavor of what, just basics around IP. What is a patent? What is a trademark? What's a
Yes.
copyright? Why do you go after one? What does it mean? And what can you do with it? What can't you do with it? Those kind of
Yes.
common questions.
Yeah, yeah, but a baseline that they can use to jump off from. No, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yes, that's a little bit about us.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's fantastic. And do you have any maybe recent successes at KU that you'd like to share? And where do you see the department being in maybe the next 5 to 10 years?
Sure. Of course, we have, some successes to talk about. I mean, the most sort of the most close to us in particular this past year has just been, sort of a good growth in invention disclosures, licenses, and our startups, right? And so each of those three components, I think, tells a little bit of a different story. I think the growth in, disclosure number for us again speaks to that we want to be engaged with our research community, and so we should see them grow. I mean, research activity itself is growing, so they should grow sort of organically, but also we are, putting energy into engaging with our researchers early and often. And so I think that's a demonstration of that. Licenses on the back end, right? We're trying to move away from being a bottleneck in some ways, right? And again, negotiate licenses with a sense of urgency and an understanding that, a missed opportunity is a really poor outcome. So, trying to keep eye on prize and put in place processes that help keep us focused on moving those things through the pipeline, as well. And then the startups, I think we all get to celebrate, meaning everybody at KU, because it's a little bit of everything, right? And the last year we had 6 startups. We had 3 that were pharma, one that was a medical device, one that was an aerospace innovation, and what was the other one? The other one was a um tech sort of new sensor
Yes.
design, sensor technology. Again, so that's sort of like a wide spectrum of different disciplines and types of technology. And all of them were supported by not just our office, but all of those components in the innovation ecosystem I had mentioned earlier, our drug accelerator, our, innovation park, all played a hand in those. So I think that's something we can really celebrate as a community, in the past year. That's, those are the kind of things that we're focused in on, lately. The other thing that we're focused in on are some, partnerships. I can't really give away the partners, but I think, we've struck some on the other side of the house, and very small role for us in all of this activity. Credit where credit's due. It's a lot of other people carrying the weight, not the TTO necessarily. But some really good corporate partnerships coming down, the pike, and again, some that are focused on tech, and some that are focused more on life science. And it's, again, this lovely sort of balance, between the different personalities within our institution.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you for joining us today, Cliff. I think we're just about out of time. But before we close, is there
Yeah.
anything else that you feel like people should know about KU's tech transfer? I mean, you've done a great job kind of outlining the ecosystem, your impact, your goals for the future, but anything else that's on your mind?
I mean, earlier you'd asked a little bit about sort of what is success, right? And I think success, I grew up sort of in a system where the ultimate validation of our success is to see a product in use or a product on the market in use from somewhere. right? And I look forward to the day when we can say some of the seeds that we're sowing today, this year, last year, whatever it is, really, make their way to the market, and you see somebody using them or somebody can go buy them. I think that's just an incredibly impactful, right? It's happened once so far for me in my career to be able to see a product on the shelf that, was a license that I participated in and a startup that came out of my home university. So hopefully we see more of that. The other thing to say is, football season is underway,
It's
right?
true.
And KU, a little bit of a disappointing season for us, but you never know. We upset Iowa State last week. We might upset the undefeated Cougars this
You
coming
never know.
weekend.
We've been on a streak, but you never know.
Exactly, exactly. But we're also turning to basketball season, which is generally a really good time for the Jayhawks. So
Yes,
rock
yes, it
chalk.
is. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today, Cliff. Really appreciate your time here and enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much for the invite. Look forward to meeting you in person at some point, and thank you.